Welcome to the Dangerously Calm podcast. Really looking forward to chatting with Michael Estabrook today, a person that was kind of a client turned friend, and it's been exciting to get to know him over the last couple of years, personally and professionally. We'll talk a little bit about his background and expertise as a safety professional. Been doing it for a while, seen a lot of things, and we're going to talk about what he's seen in the industry, when it comes to keeping people safe, performing at a high level. What I love about him and his organization is they really preach what we call operational excellence, which I think is a term that they lean into, which, how do we continue to sharpen the tool and give our people skill sets to help them stay safe, yes, but also continue to perform at a high level. And so I'll turn it over to Mike. Tell us a little bit about kind of your background, and then what got you into construction, and then we'll just kind of talk about your journey and how some of the mental fitness things that you've learned and what you're doing to integrate it into your organization, so we can help people out there that are maybe looking for tools and resources to keep people safe, mitigate risk, and perform at a high level, and talk about your expertise. So
Thank you for having me too.
Yeah.
I appreciate being here. It seems like we've had our own little mini podcasts on our own for a long time.
Yeah. I wish we would have had Mike's on us the last 2 years of just all the things, because again, it's really been great to work with him, because I don't know much about the construction industry. We came into it about 2 years ago, and he and I have been kind of stuck on each other's hips as I've been watching how it works and really coming up with solutions that can be integrated. So
thank you.
We've had some fun.
Well, we have, and everything that I say with a lot of humility, because as you know, and many of the listeners know, that we're dealing with human behavior, and no one's got it all figured out on human behavior. Mm-hmm. But my background is from New York. You hear the New York accent. Mm-hmm. No apologies for that. That's just how it is. Yep. And born and raised there. Got into safety simply because there was no other jobs available when I graduated college with an engineering degree, which is 4,000 years ago. Yeah. Got into really
Noah's Ark wasn't looking.
It was that checking for holes.
Yeah,
and,
checking. I figured
poor,
there might
poor
be
paint
some
jobs.
Engineering opportunity there, but I don't know.
So we got into a space where I needed to evaluate. I was hired to help evaluate kind of industrial engineering, if you will, whether or not companies would be worthy of being underwritten by insurance companies. And then from that grew into a little bit more of a consulting mode, and thinking about how risk can show up.
Did you say where were you geographically?
It was up in New York.
That was in
at
New
the
York.
time.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. Got time went on. Moved. Started working out of Manhattan. My role grew into something bigger. It was more consulting. So the underwriting company I was with wanted to work with the bigger businesses that they had to see if there were ways to effectively reduce risk, particularly on hurting people, putting products out the door that could hurt people, blowing up their own buildings in many respects, or having bad outcomes there. And I joke about that, but there's a complex set of risks that show up in any business. So as time went on, I found myself doing more consulting in that space, but yet getting very frustrated that I didn't feel like I was doing enough. I didn't feel like my discipline was doing enough, but particularly me. So kind of had an opportunity to move from New York down to Georgia, took that opportunity, became more of a consultant in the space of insurance brokerage, and then figured out I better go back to school and figure out a better way to do this, to have an influence on change in the organization. So I did that, got a master's in organizational behavior, and then had a couple of career moves after that, and landed almost by accident, quote unquote.
Right. We're Universal Energy guys. So
yeah.
No coincidence.
Nope.
Yep.
It was kind of got it there, and I became part of an amazing organization, very large mechanical contractor in the Southeast. So on that journey, I realized that the underpinnings of having an effective safety culture, which is a very widely overused and diluted term, I think.
Like work-life balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't stand that term.
Yeah.
Right.
And, the opportunity to really make a difference, through the discipline of safety. And that's where I've been spending my time. Went back to schools. We've talked about
your doctoral program right now.
Yep.
Which is cool.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
But a good one. And the genesis of getting into that was really trying to find better ways to attack the decision-making process that folks tend to ignore, that drives up their own exposure to risk. And it's an amazing, it's yet simplified term on paper, but it's an amazing area of study. And I truly believe in my heart that what we're talking about today is very much, overuse a quote, tip of the spear, but tip of the spear kind of thinking. And I think it translates beyond individual safety into more operational excellence, which is, you mentioned it before. And, my company and I, we're really going down that road. We really believe that the underpinnings of making decisions that could have bad outcomes, like unplanned events with bad outcomes, have some commonality, and there's something there that we need to research in order to get better with. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I love that, and that's what has been exciting for me, coming from the world of mental training, high performance mindset training, which is that's the industry I do come from, and working with people, whether it's military special operations or athletes that understand the importance of training their brain as a competitive edge. That's the cheat code. That's how you win when you shouldn't. That's how you make good decisions under stress, and that's usually just been a skill set that was reserved for those elite high performing teams and organizations. And that's what's been so cool about what we're doing at My Steady Mind, and what I always believed was, how do you make that mental fitness training, proactive mental fitness training, available for normal people that work in high stress. We call them VUCA, right? VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So we're in environments where there's a lot of stress, a lot of risk, shit can get sideways, people can die, and that's and we focus, and we know, and we'll talk about, like, the construction industry does a great job on traditional safety programs and mitigation, and there's a lot of good things in place that will mitigate some things. But what I've learned and what we've seen, especially when it comes to incidents and accidents, the things that the unplanned stuff that happens, it's human error. 80 to 90% of it's just a result of that person or a person making a bad decision under stress. Or not being present because of thinking about my finances or my dying mother or whatever. And so that's what I love about you and what we're doing, is you have to understand that human element of it. And the reality of what people are bringing to work that just new PPE or SOP isn't going to address.
Right. And we've talked about this a little bit too, and that is, decisions do not define the individual typically, especially in the area that we're talking about. So separating the human from the decision making, you understand that people usually have good intent.
Right.
And there's an old Rush song that says, folks are basically decent, That's what
Inherently.
conventional wisdom would say, and that's the truth. I mean, and the bottom line is, we are making decisions. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. We make decisions without wanting to go down that path, the cognitive dissonance that we talk about. And there's a reason for that. And I think having, showing some grace and understanding that, and then getting to where those roots are is what we're talking about with My Steady Mind, with mental fitness training. There's absolutely something there.
Yeah, and it's to that point, part of what the approach is understanding, and this is where I think a lot of people out there, like, they're just, a lot of people that create training and things like that, they don't slow down, or they don't have the kind of awareness enough to just understand human nature, and, like you said, just what most people are designed to do. They want to get up, they want to do a good job, they want to go do right. They're not going there to, I hope I fall off a ladder today and or blow up the job site. That's not usually happening, right? But it's people are just, we all live in this world where we're just we're stressed, we're worn out, we're tired, we're worried, and that's okay. But especially in an industry like construction, where the expectation is, like, just leave that at home or whatever, right? Or shut it down, get up here, show up, suit up, and that old mindset, it's kind of perpetuating more incidents and accidents, and it's antiquated thinking, and it's not realistic. And that's what's been so cool, is we understand all that, and then how do we bring tools and solutions out there in a way that they'll actually use, and that's a big part of what we do is with My Steady Mind, is you have to hide the medicine in the cheese, and kind of use a bait and switch, right? And put stuff out there that is just for their good, that works, that doesn't feel like we're treating them like they're dumb or stupid, or and empowering them to have the awareness of almost about to make a bad decision, but being able to pause in that moment and reframe it. And so
and I think part of it, Seth, too, is that the whole concept of risk perception, or perceiving risk, whatever that risk might be, is an area of study that seems to be coming up more in research in the last 10 years, particularly overseas, in Europe and over in China, which I'm finding out as I do my research. And there's not enough research here in the States on it, I think. And I think we could be part of that. But, I work I get to work with some of the most amazing tradespeople in the industry. I mean, I truly just witnessing what they have to go through, and the dynamic cognitive loading that takes place every day, and how they skillfully manage it. And yet, in the industry, we still have bad outcomes.
Right.
And it could be injury, it could be water spill in our case, or it could be we have to do something twice or 3 times even. And that's just the nature of the industry. And I think the legacy habit of the industry is that that's been okay.
Right.
You know,
Part of the job.
Part of the job. Just blow and go, get through it. And, you know, we'll work through that stuff. And that's not, it can't be the company I work at, and it's not. We don't want that to be. And it can't be our industry. We're better than that.
Right.
We are so better than that, especially with today's day and age and all the access we have to information. So, you know, really focusing on how do we get down to that level where we are enabling folks to kind of broaden their lens on what is driving your decision making. How is that? You know, how do we, and that's what we're working on now, right?
All right, sitting back down again with Mike. We just did a couple shoots on some of his, you know, experiences in the construction industry and mental fitness and the importance of it and how he's been working to integrate it. But we were chatting. I've been able to spend a little time throughout the day with Chelsea and Mike, and we're just, you know, shooting the shit as people do. But we were talking, you know, and where did we first get connected? Do you remember what our first introduction was? I'm kind of going back to like where it kind of initially began, and just this, we can talk about some of the journey we've had individually, personally and professionally, you know, and just kind of where you're going, what you're doing with it, and help other people out there maybe think through some ways they can integrate some. Yeah, I was trying to think.
So a couple of years ago, at the AGC of Atlanta, you came in and you were brought in amongst a couple of different folks that were in this space of looking at mental fitness, but not calling it that.
Was that a safety
It was
summit?
a safety. It was actually a safety council meeting or a safety committee meeting for the Atlanta AGC. And the group at the time was looking to explore who's out there that has something that the industry can use. So you came in at a time where I think there were 2 or 3 other outside independent folks that were trying to do something similar to what you're doing. And I didn't know you for sure. And over a period of a couple of months, I heard you and then I heard a couple of others. But what gravitated me towards reaching out to you independently of that was the fact that there's an emerging codex that I think people are going to figure out. And for the first time, I hadn't felt like we were talking about suicide prevention, which is incredibly important in our industry and construction. But let's get upstream. And what I heard you say at the time were things that were talking about, as you call it, training versus treatment. Mm-hmm. You can train in your truck. And these things resonated with me because I, along with a bunch of others, were trying to find more pragmatic approaches. You know, simplify this, you know, make it easier. And, you know, not because I'm sitting here with you, but honestly, that's what attracted me. Like, there's a lot of psyche science out there that we joke about, you know, we talk about and we joke about a little bit. But you need that to back up what needs to be done. And I think what My Steady Mind has done, it's created somewhat of a codex. I think we have a lot of work to do, just generally speaking, in the U.S., right, as evidenced by the lack of research we talked about earlier. But I think that there's something here. So that's what got me and you talking. And then we just realized that there was a fit.
Right.
And there was a common purpose down the road.
And that's what I was thinking back. And that is what I kind of hope, you know, the viewers and listeners understand is, again, what we're doing in this movement and this mission of trying to really, you know, ultimately help people. That's the ultimate goal, you know. Help people that work in stressful industries for sure that may sometimes feel neglected or not feel like they're getting tools that really help. And that's what I've seen in all industries, especially around this world of mental health or even safety, you know, is there's some good stuff out there for sure. But what most people think of or know, and what a lot of these conferences and you know, summits are built in, is more reactive, clinical, you know, like everybody's all about, you know, suicide prevention and suicide which I fully support, right? But what happens is, and I see it all the time, and I know, and this is what I see with a lot of safety pros when they get to experience My Steady Mind for the first time, is they're going to these events and they may see the itinerary and the agenda of, you know, crisis intervention for XYZ, you know, suicide in the safety industry. You're looking at kind of the speakers and the things, and it's a lot of the same stuff, right? And you can see the people in the audience and they're kind of like, checked out before it even gets started, because it's people just glamorizing the problem.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
It's easy to get up and talk about the statistics and recite the alarming, but that's not fixing shit. That's actually perpetuating it. You know, the more we talk about the problem, there's a certain degree where, yeah, you have to have awareness, right? And when I speak and I talk, like people, a lot of people in this mental health landscape, like I'll ask them, you know, May's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'll say, hey, you know, how long do you think May has been Mental Health Awareness Month to people? And most people will be like, yeah, you know, 4 years, 5 years, 8 years. You know, they think it was some like COVID related.
Right.
Do you know how long May has been Mental Health Awareness Month?
It's been 2 decades.
75
Yeah,
years.
okay, even more.
Yeah, yeah. May has been Mental Health Awareness Month since like 1942.
Wow.
It was a World War II initiative when soldiers were coming back. So it's helping people understand, like, we don't need more awareness. Everybody's aware. We're screwed up, myself included, you know. And now, and that's what we do at My Steady Mind, we need application. Quit talking about the problem and just give me some tools that help mitigate it, you know. And that's it's refreshing when, you know, and this is coming back to like when we were talking about lunch, and that's why I was kind of, I know when I meet people like you, and you've seen it too, and we can talk about it, is when you come in with My Steady Mind and our branding and our coaches and our approach, we're just real. Yeah. We're authentic. We're vulnerable, you know.
Yes.
And we're talking shit and we're cussing and we're like, hey man, and when you do that, you see people. I remember when we did one of the workshops and you were talking about like one of your like superintendents like he was trying to take a bite of his breakfast and he just held it there for like 5 minutes because he was like, what'd that guy just say? You know? And that's what people need to be kind of like hit in the face with this reality of like, okay, hey, I'm not here to talk about the problem. I'm here to talk about the solution.
Well, if you think about it,
and not just talk about it, give you techniques.
Give you practical approaches.
Tools, yeah.
And if you think about it, what was born out of maybe somewhat related to suicide prevention, again, absolutely needed.
Yeah.
We need to focus on that in the industry. Right. In fact, we're doing stuff in my company on top of what we're talking about today. But I think the training component and the pragmatic, or you know what you call tactical tools.
Tactical, right?
Simple. Right. It's to stay away from the negative, but if you really move it forward, like we've talked about, this is a lot of rooting in sports psychology. So why can't we turn it into a positive? Why can't we make it about elite performance?
Right.
Why can't we take it from below zero to way above zero? And that's, I think, what's starting to happen in the dialogues that we're involved in. I know in our market in Atlanta.
Yeah. And it's again what we're doing, and that's why we're doing this podcast and having these conversations and these partnerships. It's never been done before. You know, there's never been a legitimate product or business that brings, and I say legitimate because I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm not a life coach. This isn't, you know, this is tactical, practical training that will rewire your brain if you do it. Right. And you hear me say this is not passive, you know, and not everybody's going to like it. We don't expect to, but if you can bring it in and get 20% of your people. The Pareto to grab on in some capacity, whether even it's just BAMO or whatever. But if you can get 20% to be like, hey, that makes sense, and I'm going to practice that personally for myself, you know, and then that's going to help me show up. Like, that's how you change culture. We don't expect 100%. But the problem, and this is where, like, what I've always said is the hardest thing to sell is wisdom. You know, that's the hardest thing to sell, especially when you're in a society that has so many biases. Yeah. You know, and so what we're doing is hard, and we're coming in and we're trying to help people see a reality that has never existed, you know, and that's been the challenge. And I'll see it a lot where I'll come in and I'll talk to like a safety director, you know, and they'll be like, oh, so tell me about My Steady Mind. And I'll start and I'll be like, well, you know, we do, you know, a lot of mental fitness and we help people with it. And he'll be like, oh, we already do that. And I'll be like, oh, okay, so what do you do? Well, you know, we have a counselor that comes in on Tuesdays from 3 to 5. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's not proactive mental training. So it's not that person's bad or dumb. They're doing what they think, you know. And so that's why these conversations and what we're doing and working together is figuring out something that has never existed in the history of our country, you know. And so it's new, and that's why I love having access and working with you, and what you've done a great job of is I don't know how to make it. You know, I don't come from construction. Yeah. I don't know what a day in the job site looks like. You know, I'm not working on data center projects. But that's what I think when you were in one of those first things and your ears lit up, you know, and you heard this approach, you're like, wait, what was that? That is, okay, Let me check that out.
I think we can look at it from my perspective. I'll say I can look at it from the standpoint of what is the tipping point of that, right? And I sensed that there could be a tipping point, to reference what we talked about earlier with Malcolm Gladwell in the book, The Tipping Point. Right. There's a number of examples in there where, even on a small scale, something happens where it gets over that.
It's a disruptor.
That point. It's a disruptor, and then all of a sudden the tribe, the brush fire of communication, if you will, sells it because everyone starts to realize, or most people, that there's something to it. Right. That's what I want to accomplish. And I believe that that's there because we're talking to each other at a level that's beyond work, that's beyond home. It's just how we live.
Just helping humans. Yeah. And that's why I've been so happy to we are sharing with him some pictures, and maybe we can put it up on this. I'll send it to Ryan and maybe get it in there, and and we can too if you've got stuff you want to share, slides or whatever, we can to demonstrate the point. But ultimately that's what it's about, is just helping other humans. Period. Just feel better, get some hope. I used to say all the time, I'm a hope dealer now, not a dope dealer. I sell hope, not dope. Because that's just what it is. And we were fortunate to be able to bring this training out, and we're converting it into Spanish, and to bring it out and do some training and mental fitness training for the Spanish speaking community, which is a lot of the tradesmen and women out there who a lot of times, everybody does safety training and everybody does, but they kind of feel probably on the back burner at times, and like nobody sees them, you're just the tradesman or whatever it is.
Right.
But when you can bring this in and you give them this message and it feels hope and motivating and fun, they're just like, they light up, and they see that smile, and it just, that's what you want to do, and that's the power of the proactive mental fitness training and then, like you said, you just expose people, and then it'll start to go, we say land and expand, right? It'll start to go, they'll start talking about it, and they'll start saying, hey, how about we do, and that's when it's getting that momentum.
You got on resonance. I think it would be interesting just for a moment to talk about what should we avoid, and one of the things that we've talked about with integrating, just avoid it. Like, if you're going to turn this thing, into your company, any company, what do you avoid? I think the number one thing is you don't make it prescriptive. You sell it, and it is a sales. I mean, even though the company is making an investment and strongly suggesting that you explore this, I think making this kind of thing prescriptive kind of deflates the potential impact it could have, because now I'm being told I have to look at this versus seeing. And I think we adopt to things a little differently when someone is saying, hey, try this. Look at Tommy and Timmy and Paul over there. They've tried this. Look what they're doing. Rather than, we have a new program, and to oversimplify it, but we have a new program and everyone's going to try this program. Like, you're going to begrudgingly go into it, and I feel like if you don't prescribe it and you do it the right way and you get it infiltrated into the network the right way, it will again sell itself. So that's number one. What would you think number 2 would be?
Well, I mean, I agree 100%. And I want to say too, like the secret from a human behavior is you want to create this intrigue and this mystery kind of around it, where people are kind of like, wait, what was that? What did they say in that meeting? And it just starts to create this curiosity because we know it's going to work, but it's, because I love that. Don't make it a mandated prescriptive thing that is just a new safety initiative.
Right.
Because they're not going to do it, or it's going to make it harder to get them into it. So I love that. And that's being strategic, integrating it, and just putting it out there. Like when you just take a QR code, right, that says pissed off, scan here. And you don't tell anybody anything about anything, but go put 100 of those around the job sites and on the gearboxes and sit back and see what happens. People are going to start talking, hey, what was that? And then there's a technique. So I love that. So the second thing that you're asking, that I would say don't do, if you're a leader looking at mental fitness, one of the things I say all the time, if you want to make real changes, it can't be a one-off. So don't think of it as a one-off, start to think about it as something that is going to be a part of your organization. Now, that doesn't mean you come in and dump it all now, and it's still the strategic, simple integration, but come into it knowing that this is something that's going to take time, and you have to commit to it. and I mean, I'm almost to the point now where if like somebody just, hey, just come do a workshop. And I'm like, okay, but then what? Because I feel like a lot of training out there is kind of one-offy. But I would say, yeah, don't, if you're a leader and you're really trying to help your people and do this stuff, like, yeah, don't limit your thinking to treating this like a one-off solution.
I agree. It can't be an ATM.
No.
It's not. I mean,
No.
this is much more. This is a relationship that you form with, in the case of My Steady Mind, with My Steady Mind, and with each other in the company.
Right.
Because with other people doing it,
Yep.
you form a different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But it's not a drive-through.
Yeah, and I'll say too, what's cool back to like this, what we're trying to do, real big solving a real big, massive problem. And at My Steady Mind, everybody we work with, every client, we feel it's like a family. You're part of the team. You're not just another. I mean, and we're going to learn from you, and how it works with you, and I think I believe most of the people that have done our training that would feel like they're a part of something,
Yeah.
because they are, and
Yeah, I
I think
agree with
that's
that.
important.
I would say one other thing not to do is, if you talked about leadership, would be to expect results to show up in a couple of months. They're not.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that you get into, and if you go down the road, you don't know about the small successes that are taking place until people start talking about it, or you see the bigger successes. So the small stuff breeds the big stuff.
That's right.
Kind of mentality. And I think, don't look for the big stuff to happen. Let the small stuff be seeded, germinate, and start working its way up. And that takes time.
It does, and the thing I hear, to your point exactly, like, because people, I think a lot of, in our condition, in our society especially, everybody focuses success on like a certain KPI or a certain metric,
Right.
or a certain monetary. And okay, you can measure all that, and that's good. And we know our training will affect those at time. We've proven it.
Right.
It takes, but the more important thing, and this is what forward, leaders that have their eyes and ears open understand what's really moving the needle. Is when you're sitting back and you overhear another guy tell somebody BAMO on the job
Right.
site.
Right.
Right. That, because the real thing is, the real success is the thing that didn't happen.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
that's what we know. This stuff, the cool thing about mental fitness training is just BAMO, for example, breathe and move on. If you just teach that one technique and people kind of lean into it, that guy or girl may have taken a BAMO breath that night that kept them from getting into a fight at the house,
Right.
or, something out in town, or, pulling the trigger. I mean, this is all stuff that has happened that people have said, that thing kept me from doing this, right? If I didn't have that tool, now that doesn't show up on this person's RIR, okay, but it's happening, and it's having this ripple effect of benefits, not just on the job sites, because that's what's cool. You're not just saying this is going to make you a better worker, and you can't make it feel like that to your people. Like, we just want to get more out of you,
Right.
and so we
Right.
can grow and hit our revenue goals.
Yeah.
It's more, this is going to help you as a mom, as a dad, as a person. Here's the simple technique. And then we know that if you integrate it and you do watch it over time, those bigger metrics that we're trying to reduce will go down. But it's not like we had a workshop yesterday, so our KPI should drop tomorrow.
Right. Right.
Like,
Not
and again,
gonna
that's,
happen. And if it does, it's fake.
That's right.
Yeah,
That probably wasn't something, and it's just this, it's helping people understand, like, humans are humans are humans. Doesn't matter. And everybody's struggling, and behavior change takes time. And it takes repetition to recondition, and you have to put it in strategically and deliberately and small, and just watch it kind of go and grow, and it will, and then you can identify some metrics, whether you're looking at claims or RIR, whatever, and we can watch them and say, and again, My Steady Mind's not the only solution, it's coupled with other things,
Right.
so we don't come in saying, hey, scratch that, get rid of this is just
No,
one tool.
no, you don't.
And that's
No.
what you guys have done a good job of. And like, we've worked with, big departments, and we've reduced suicidalization, we've reduced suicides, but we don't sell this as an anti-suicide program.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know it will mitigate that.
Right. But it's not designed
It's
to
not,
do that.
yeah,
I mean, it's going to have that impact.
It will.
It should have
That just
impact.
happens to be a byproduct, of this training. But the secret is, again, if you want to, you have to, especially people that are maybe living in that mindset. And I'm a guy that's been there, that's been suicidal, that's been in full addiction, and you're not going to get to me with some, handout that says, hey, feeling stressed, call this 1-800 number, right? That's not going to do it. So those are, you have to get tools to those kind of people,
Yeah.
And that's where this approach and making it fun. And if I'm out there and I'm pissed off and I'm on the job site and I'm hungover or maybe even half still drunk and or about to operate and I see a pissed off or feeling like shit sticker, nobody's told me anything about anything, but I see that and I'm feeling like shit and I think it's funny and I scan it and it's somebody's, hey man, I know you feel like crap, but let's just take a BAMO breath. And nobody watched. My supervisor didn't have to watch me do that.
No,
I
and
didn't have
it's
to sign
1
up
minute.
for a class. It's less than
1 minute.
Right.
I mean,
and that's
come
what
on.
back to the
Yeah.
mental fitness is.
Yep.
It's less than 1 minute a day. It's like the toothbrush, right? We want you to use it twice a day,
Mhm.
but it doesn't take time.
Mhm.
It's simple, and that's how that may be the one thing that just taught that person one technique that regulated them a little bit. That might be the thing that says, okay, well, let me not go do that, or let me.
Yeah. I got one other thing
Yeah.
of what not to do. Just
I
a
love the
thought.
what nots to do. So
Yeah,
what do we
just
said?
like-
Don't first be prescriptive.
Don't be prescriptive.
Don't expect it, or don't treat it like a one-off.
Don't treat it like a one-off.
Yep.
Don't expect immediate results.
Yep.
And then don't ignore it.
Yeah.
And I think as a leader, if you say this is a great idea and go forth and conquer Tiger team or committee or whatever it is, and you leave it alone, you're not demonstrating. I wonder if what John Maxwell, someone like John
Yeah.
Maxwell would say. We were talking about him earlier. And try it. Do it as a leader. Be the
Starts with
behavior
you.
that you're trying to get out into your organization. And I think that would resonate because it's so different.
Yeah.
And it can impact your life as well. So don't ignore it,
Yeah.
as a leader. It's just,
Yeah.
well, they got that.
Right.
You know.
And I want to start, because that's always another thing too. And maybe we can talk about like your personal experience with it, and kind of like things that you've learned and maybe how you're applying it just with, your music or the stress of just everything else that you do. But as an entrepreneur with my steady mind, like I won't work with companies that have that approach of like leadership is like they just do it, we're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you need it probably just as bad.
Yeah.
Whether you're CEO, C-suite, it doesn't matter. And again, if they're going to see right through it if you're not practicing it. You know what I mean? If you're not doing it and resonating on that energy and bringing that same thing, and I think that's if they see leaders and you do a great job of it. And another thing that is counterintuitive in the construction world, and I say it all the time, is your vulnerability is your credibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what, the world I come from of training, the baddest people on planet Earth, you're going to see are the most vulnerable.
Mhm.
They're not the rah, 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 and and so it's given people this permission in this past to say, look, you don't have to act big, bad, and tough. I know you're tough as
Right.
shit, right?
Right.
You're an iron worker, you're whatever, but you're also human. And it's okay. And they learn, and I've seen it with a lot of people in your organization, just that humility, that vulnerability that allows them to kind of put them, and then the people they're training under are like, hey, I'll go through a wall for that guy,
Yeah.
So we'll talk. That's a lot there that we kind of unpacked, but I think it comes into what you were saying of like, don't just try to, force it on people.
No.
You do it.
Well, yeah.
personally, and then
I think people, when you're authentic,
authentic.
when you make yourself vulnerable, you show a degree of authenticity that as a leader, people want to see. You're human.
You're
no one
human.
expects you at the end of the day to
Yeah.
be 100%
Yeah.
accurate all day long.
Oh
It's
God,
just, you
I
can't,
tried like that for 10 years, and that's the first time I ever got up on an anxiety and depression medication when I was perfect.
we can't do that. No, and I mean, it's easy to say, it's tough to do, especially if you're a strong leader and you have a lot of good things going on. But that vulnerability component, man, that
Right.
shows up.
Yeah.
And people, I think you folks that are maybe 10 degrees away from you in the organization would see that and say, I can connect with that.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I think this movement entails.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'll talk a lot about that too, is because I think a big piece of what this is teaching people, because you'll see a lot of time too, and you hear me use the word tactical. I'm military, right? So everything, I like the word, but tactical implies that, there's a practical and a pragmatic way to go about doing this stuff, because when most people in any industry hear words like mental this or safety, that it's just, especially anything mental, it's just very ambiguous and like pie in the sky and lip service or fluffy or woo woo, which is just, and there's plenty of that out there, right? But this stuff is tactical and it's practical, and up to that point, because a lot of times I talked about like we're teaching tactical empathy.
Yeah.
And what does tactical empathy means? It means like, it doesn't mean I all of a sudden have to turn into this softy where you can cry on my shoulder all the time and I'm just going to come out and, it means I know how and when to maybe use some of that. but it also means there's a time and a place where I got to light your ass up, because that still does have to happen.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's what this high level emotional intelligence, which maybe we can kind of talk about that, and the importance of having this awareness in these tools, especially like at the leadership, foreman and superintendent, the ones that like they really have to learn this skill of being tactically emotionally intelligent. And we'll talk about the 4 steps, right? So the first step is self-awareness. And so if we know, and I'm sure a lot of people out there know, you don't have to look too far in our country to see that most people are just not very self-aware. Period.
Yep.
They're just not. And it's the society we live in. And so that's the first step. You have to develop self-awareness. And so what is self-awareness, right? I can't just come into my people and say, hey, everybody be self-aware out there. Self-awareness takes training, and self-awareness means you have the ability to observe. It means you have the ability to observe your emotions, not analyze or evaluate. That's what most people do. As soon as I get scared or pissed, why am I so pissed? They start. As soon as you start analyzing, you're toast. You're rampant. So observing is, we say things like name it to tame it. Hey, fear, right? Hey, anxiety, note it, label it, let it, come back later. So self-awareness is step 1. I'll go through this, then I want to talk about your real integration, right? But if you don't have self-awareness, you're never going to get to anywhere. But it starts with self-awareness. Step 2, self-regulation. So that's, if I'm aware that I'm pissed or scared or worried, what technique, how do I regulate it? And with an emotion, you can either manage it or suppress it. That's your options. And most people suppress. Whether I'm going to, scream or drink or fight or punch, right? Manage it is like BAMO. So mental fitness is giving you those biohacks. You biohack your thoughts or your breath. Thoughts control your mind. Breath controls your nervous system.
Right.
So I have to have awareness that I'm pissed off or mad or sad. Self-regulation, a technique to regulate, de-escalate myself. And then the Jedi stuff, and this is why I think it's so important in construction, especially if you're leading teams and people. Step 3 is situational awareness. So who am I around? Where am I? And you literally, the more you train, you start to develop what's called limbic resonance, which is your intuition. You can feel and read the energy that people are putting off. That's situational awareness. So how are my people truly feeling? Energetically, emotionally. And then the Jedi trick, step 4, is situational regulation. That's what techniques can I use to regulate other people's energy and emotions that don't know how to get them to do what I need them to do.
Right.
And that's kind of taking the whole skill of, and that it can be called tactical empathy. It can be called a bunch of different things, but it's moving it out of this like, oh, just do it because it's good for your soul. It is good for your soul, right? But once you learn, and that's the sports psychology, is you're learning how to integrate it in real time to control and influence situations to keep everybody performing at a high level. So I'll shut up.
No, that's it's interesting. I love those steps, and I think if you wanted to take a simple example,
Chelsea's like, he'll never shut up. But he won't shut up.
No, it's good.
Yeah. Whiteboard is coming.
Whiteboard's coming soon to a theater near us.
Gonna have the cut thing. Go ahead.
No, I think that the 4 steps are important because in the industry, what we've seen is training emerge that talks about being situationally aware. We even say it, like I say it, be situationally aware. Well, it's like, that's great if you've gone through the first 2 steps, if you're self-aware and you know how to self-regulate. And here's why. Simple example, for those listening, it might not be the best example, but I think you get the theme. Let's just say you're at a construction site and you walk up on a trench, and the trench is not being run right. It does not have the right levels of controls that it needs. There's no protection for a collapse. There's no exits. It's not marked off. They're not even running an atmospheric test in there. There's nothing going on that needs to go on. And you have someone that's not a leader that sees this, walks up on this crew that he or she might be part of, and they know this ain't right.
They can feel it.
They feel it, right? So they're situationally aware, but they don't have the, I'll call it the mots, being from New York.
The mots,
I don't know if that's
the
even right,
chutzpah.
but the chutzpah, the gumption, if you will, to say anything about it. But if you're self-aware, if you know how to regulate yourself, and you can kind of take that BAMO breath, and you have that moment, I got to say something, because you might be more inclined to say something, read the room, and then say something about it, and then maybe stimulate someone to do something, even as in our world, in construction world, as an apprentice or someone that's new to the industry. That's what we need.
Right.
And I think the Jedi, it's really Jedi in training, if you will, in many respects. But you have someone that's willing to make a difference by saying something. And I think that cultural drive to not say anything, because that's how things work, is countermeasured by this, by the steps that you just talked. And I think it's important. All 4 steps are important.
Right.
Especially the first 2.
Yeah, and then again, that's what I like. You're hearing in real time and understanding the practical integration of what we've created. To your point exactly, is there's a lot of people out there that their intuition is telling them something's not right? Where they've gone through just because our intuition works that way.
Yeah.
But the thing, and you've said it again, is the say something, and that's where the stars come in. People don't say anything because they've never had a language or a word that they can use that will not make them feel like I'm going to get punished or I'm calling you out, foreman.
Right.
That's why they don't. Right. So that's the stars create that language that now if I'm out there and I'm that apprentice or whatever, and I notice and if my gut is saying, hey, something's wrong, I can be like, hey, supervisor, looks like we might be time traveling here because we're getting ahead of XYZ, or it looks like, we need to embrace the suck because this, that's the magic of it. Is it gives them, because that's where a lot of the people are out there again. They want to, and people are very intuitive, and they can see and they can feel when there's but because I am just a tradesman, or I don't know how to go approach that guy, and tell him what I see, and that's why this mental fitness, again, that's the purpose of the stars. And it creates this external thing that I'm leaning into. That's not me talking at you, and it's that language that so that's a great example of it, or a use case. And that's the problem in like the safety mental health thing is we'll try to address some of that stuff with this more reactive clinical diagnostic stuff, like putting people through mental health first aid or suicide first and stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. No. And that needs to be a part of every organization, 100%. 100%. Right?
Yep.
But we can't expect people, a lot of times when I say in that industry, to feel comfortable just going out and proactively talking about that and conversating around it, and so it's and again, so they need to have an additional language on top of that, because that's how you're going to actually empower, because the big thing too, and I come back to it, the thing you're trying to help people do is go about their day feeling more empowered and not vulnerable. Because if I'm acting and operating and working out of vulnerability or fear, shit's going to get sideways.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And so, and all this stuff where you heard me, we keep coming back to the training is you can watch, you can be a leader out there, watch this episode, all of them, be nodding your head going, oh man, that's, that's great, and then, but if you don't go put something into action, talking doesn't fix anything. No. Training does.
No, and look, to be completely transparent too, you might not get it right the first time or the second time, meaning it might not stick the way that you want it to stick, and you got to keep trying. Yeah. And you got to get the right people in the room, and you might not need to get different people in the room, but you got to keep trying, because doing nothing is not an option. For those companies that really want to be elite, that really want to move to the head of their class, especially in the construction industry, where I think the boats are starting to point. And that's the navigational beacon. We got to attack the mind. And when we attack the mind, if you're a trade partner or you're a general contractor and an owner, that's building, and many markets are building, I think you really need to be thinking about this in a way that, targets something more than just, hey, we want to be safe today. Yes, we want to be safe, but we want to be better. This stuff will help us be better as an organization. If you 100%. Embrace that, I think it becomes more of a pull. Right.
And that's the thing that we talk about is, and the term we've been using with some of our partners in the construction industry that get it at that level, and that's what they're saying is mental fitness needs to be mission essential. Yeah. It's not a nice to have. It's a must have. If you're truly trying to grow and be setting the tip of the spear, and because it will help it with productivity and performance. We're not saying this is some magic pill solution. I just know when we're saying, mental training, there's, the only risk is not doing it. There is no risk, so that's what I tell people, like the most expensive thing you can do is nothing. Yeah. Yeah. So I can come have a conversation and present the solutions to a GC or an owner, and they can hear me out. And if they don't believe in it, or they don't have the budget, or they don't want to invest in it, okay, cool. I'd much rather have a fast no than a long maybe.
Yeah.
I'll check back in on you in 12 months. Because the thing I will tell you with certainty is the attention spans are going to get shorter. The distraction is going to continue to ramp up. Mental health is going to continue to get it's not getting any better. You know, and you can believe me or not.
Yeah, right.
That's up to you, right? I'm not here to sell you. I'm not trying to sell you, you know, Kirby vacuums like I used to back in the day. We're trying to help your people, you know, and that's what it's this paradigm shift. And that's what, again, you said that, like, the construction industry, and that's what I'm so grateful for, is I didn't know that was going to be the industry in this Atlanta market, you know, and every time I go in Atlanta and I talk to the AGC I'm like, something magical is happening here, and it really is, you know, and we're figuring it out together, you know, and trying things, and no, that didn't work, you know, and listening. And that's what I love about what you're doing, is open it up and genuinely listening to your people give their opinions.
Right.
And you know me, I can stand there and you can be like, hey, well, that thing they did there was dumb as shit. And I try to, believe me, my ego every day, I try to keep it down, and that sometimes doesn't work, you know. But it's just coming in and figuring it out, and just trying to create something that can go help the next person. You know?
Well, we got to stay on it. And, you know, I'll say that the analogy in my mind is often that, you know, the distraction universe is only getting bigger, and we're going up a downhill escalator. Like, we're trying to get ahead of it, and it's speeding up to keep us down. Like, we got to move faster and be more strategic about how we're doing it, because in the absence of that, it's going to be easier to stay down. And I know in my heart that we got to get ahead of this. So.
And we're doing it. We're doing it, you know. And so, I mean, again, I thank you for just being here, being a part of it, helping us, helping the viewers, you know, the people that are watching this. Again, we're trying to solve a major problem, collaborate, you know, and do it in a way that's meaningful, impactful, that works for the client, gets to the people. You know, it's no small task, you know. But you and I are fortunate that we get to witness in real time how it helps people. You know, hearing that person in the hallways, having them send you that text, talking about how they taught their son BAMO. You know,
multiple examples of that. Multiple examples.
You know, like that's when you know you got something. You know, and so again, we're grateful to have you in, spend time with you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
My pleasure. Yep. And I don't know if you saw, but we got his painting here. Our resident artist, Julie David, makes this, and so Mike's a musician.
Mike attempts to be a musician.
Yeah. And so we always give our guests that, but. Yeah, thank you again. I'm sure we can have many more episodes, and we'll continue to talk and share things we're learning and working on to help more people out there. But good stuff.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
Thanks.